Good evening and welcome to tonight's Monday night panel, special edition. We're very pleased to have with us tonight former player Matt Heywood, Jonny Leighfield, Mark Merriman, James Spencer, and of course the host will be Vic Morgan. So let's just bring on Vic. Good afternoon, Vic. How are you?
I'm very well, Chris. A few internet problems tonight. The weather in the southwest is pretty rubbish, so apologies for that.
It's just started here as well, so
yeah, hopefully we'll get through without any problems. So
yeah,
there you go.
I'm sure we'll find a way through.
Yes.
If you have any questions for the panel, leave them in the comments. We'll get us through as many as we can. And please have a look at the ticker that's going along the bottom of the screen. We've got a walk-in football tournament, so 22nd of August. More details will be published nearer the time. Okay, so let's make a start. So let's bring on Matt. Hiya, Matt.
Hi, how you doing? You all right?
Good, thank you. Here's Jonny.
Hi.
Hi, Jonny.
Hi.
James. Hi, James.
Hi, Chris.
And last but not least, here's Mr. Merriman. Hiya.
Hiya, Chris. All right. Hello.
Yeah, good, thank you. Right, so I will leave you to it. As I said, any questions, we'll get through as many as we can. Okay, I'll speak to you later.
Chris, thank you very much indeed. And once again, apologies if something goes wrong with the internet because it's raining, well, cats, dogs and very other species of animals in the southwest tonight. So apologies about that. Matt, Jonny, Mark and James, thank you very much indeed for joining us. We weren't going to have a regular Monday night panel in the summer, but it seems appropriate that we ought to talk about events going on at Swindon Town Football Club. We'll get to actually what is going on with James in a little while, but let's go around the panel and see what they've thought, looking at it from afar. Matt, former player, you've been through financial crises at Swindon Town, but this is some sort of different animal, this, isn't it?
Well, I'd say so. Like you say, when I was there in the early 2000s, we certainly went into administration once. It was threatened, I think, a second time. You know, by all accounts, looking back, the club was sort of days from going into sort of real trouble. But yeah, in the 4.5 years I was there, you know, we got paid late regularly. We used to get paid by cheque, which was for 4 years we got paid by cheque. So a League One football club, you know, dishing out envelopes at the end of the month, although it could be, you know, a week or 10 days into the following month, and that was the norm, really. We sort of got used to that over certainly the last 4 years of my time there. But yeah, I mean, this is completely different. At least then there was an owner, there was a manager, there was a squad of players. Whereas now going to a season without, you know, an owner, a director of football, a manager, you know, what staff are there, I'm not sure. How many contracted players are there, you know, single figures. So it's a real mess.
Yeah, I was looking at pictures of pre-season training today with about 5 players, Matt. I mean, you would know we're, 4 or 5 weeks away from the start of the Football League season, and we've kind of effectively lost 2 weeks already. That puts us well behind the curve, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, say they're already a week, 10 days behind most teams. Even if everything was resolved tomorrow, which it won't be, it takes time to get a manager in, time to get the staff in. You know, what players realistically are going to come that aren't already sorted somewhere else? So you're already, you know, you've missed any sort of players that would be available, and you're going down the pecking order there, picking off scraps, and it's going to be late. Where have they been training? You know, it's going to be a lot of loans again. But, you know, it needs to get sorted out quickly, because realistically, what player would want to come and join the club currently, even if there was someone to bring them in? So it's a mess.
Well, we saw that with Piers Sweeney, didn't we? Albeit he said it was because he wanted to stay in the extra area. I suspect it's because he's got a young family and he needs to know he's going to be able to sort of put food on the table for the next few months.
Of course, he's got to be sort of relatively polite and come out. He doesn't want to sort of attack anyone. But if he's made promises, or, you know, he's heard this, or he's been told that, you know, we'll do this, and his very first, you know, the first month he arrives, they're not getting paid. It's like, well, you know, I don't need this. So
exactly. Jonny, you took a week off last week, I think. Good move, eh?
Yeah, I've taken 2 weeks off now, I think, since the season ended, and
Yes.
could have taken more. Yeah, it's not. Like I said, if you saw my tweet, it was a bit like, felt like everything that was happening. It was a bit like, well, it's not a great time to take off. But to be honest, I don't know. And no time's a good time at the moment, is it?
What have you thought then? I mean, you're not only you're a reporter for the Swindon Advertiser, but you're a fan as well. And you as a fan would have been through this before in various guises, as we all have. What have you thought of the last few days? It's extraordinary, isn't it? I mean, we've never seen anything like this.
Yeah, well, I think Matt's pretty much hit it on the head just there. It's kind of, the most recent thing almost that I think you've got to just look at it in small chunks, because otherwise if you try and make sense of the whole thing in one sort of motion, it's overwhelming. So, the thing that scares me at the moment is when a team gets relegated, everyone, the everyday fan thinks, oh my God, where's the limit? We could just keep going down and down and down, and before you know it, you're in Southern League Division 1 South or whatever, because you just think there's no bottom. In this case, that like Matt said, there's got no players, there's no manager, there's nothing there. We're already 2 weeks behind. By the time anything gets sorted out, we'll be lucky to get a team out probably at the start of the season. So then, look at every team. Well, every team suffered with no preseason last year, but if you just, we're gonna have no preseason ourselves, and everyone else will have had a fair run at it. So, at the moment, I'm pretty concerned about back-to-back relegations, and I'd say the number one priority is we have a club so that we can, life goes on. But the number two thing is if we can stay up, I think right now I'm calling that a success.
Well, I think most of us would call it a miracle, quite honestly. This from Anthony. Sweeney was sold a football club and arrived at a circus. Mark, he's not far wrong with that, is he?
It's felt like a circus, hasn't it, Vic? I think we all feel like that over the last number of weeks, if not months. And obviously things have come to an absolute climax over the last few weeks. And I think, without being too dramatic, the very existence of the football club that we love is at stake. It really is. And, I just look on everything with mounting horror, if I'm honest. It's just horrendous. I want to be back in the ground. I'm ready to part with my much hard-earned cash when the takeover finally happens. I will be getting a season ticket. I won't be if Lee Power remains, but I can't see how that's going to happen. But we need to get things sorted out as quickly as possible. And I wrote down 5 weeks to the start of the new season, but I think it's actually less than that. We need to have a team in place. And as you said, Vic, training today consisted of 5 players. Put some youth team players together, which is what I suspect they're going to do for the game at Melksham on Friday. Still doesn't leave us with many. So it's got to be sorted out this week. Absolutely. Sure.
Right. James Spencer. Let me take you back to 10 minutes to 8 last Saturday night. We're all settling down. Matt was in his outside bar and his barbecue. His beers were ready. The headache was about to approach. All that kind of stuff. We're all sitting down to watch England, and a statement arrives from Lee Power saying funds had not been put in place for the transfer of shares. We then get the opposite view, and which the trust had put forward in a statement from Clem Morfuni saying funds were available for the transfer of shares. Where the bleep are we?
Very good question. Yes. So where we are is essentially on Thursday last week, Lee Power requested funds from Clem Morfuni and Axis Group for the purchase of the shares. But as the statement said, we put out on Sunday, we are still waiting some feedback, or should I say Clem Morfuni's lawyers are waiting on some feedback from Lee Power's lawyers, ultimately to some questions that they'd ask. It's like, but when you buy a house, ultimately, you've got to get all your documentation done, your searches, all that kind of good stuff, have a contract. And ultimately, the lawyers for Clem had not received satisfactory responses from Lee Power's lawyers as of Sunday. So that's what you're not going to transfer money to someone until you've got the necessary paperwork that you need. It's like a house. You're not going to buy a brand new house without searches coming back and haven't got a contract in place. So what we're actually waiting for, or what Clem is actually waiting for, is something called an undertaking. And now an undertaking is essentially a legal document which states this is actually what you're getting for your money. It's like the contract on a house, essentially, and this is what's included. And literally, the lawyers need that undertaking from Lee Power's lawyers. And as soon as they get that, they will then transfer the money, which is absolutely all there. There's £4 million in a UK bank account, absolutely ready and waiting to be transferred. Or the right amount is, shall I say. There's also additional funds that Clem Fooney had provided to the judge in the court case to prove that should there be more money needed, more than 4 million, there was funds there. There's also £300,000 in a bank account which was put in by Clem Fooney and the Axis Group to pay debts in the interim while this transfer was going on. We believe that money has not been touched by Lee Power to pay any bills. Still there. So that's where we're at the moment. As of this afternoon, we are still waiting for that undertaking from Lee Power documentation. We have not received that as yet. And as our statement said, really, essentially, if that doesn't come voluntarily from Lee Power and his lawyers in the next couple of days, then Axis Group's lawyers will essentially take the case back to court, to the same judge that dealt with the situation in previous hearings, and force the sale through the judge effectively. Now, if that happens, I mean, that's worst case scenario, going back to court. We would hope that it would be done outside of that. And Axis are absolutely desperate to get it done this week for all the reasons that, we've already mentioned. Mark's already mentioned it. We have to get on with the season, Clem has got a CEO lined up. He's got a director of football lined up to come in. There's some scouting work being done behind the scenes for players. But the more you string this out in terms of the transfer of ownership, the more issues you're going to have, because those players that you've got lined up potentially, are going to sign for another club. The manager potentially you've got lined up, might go for another role, etc., etc. So they are really keen, desperately keen to get it done this week for that reason. If in the next couple of days voluntarily that information doesn't come forward, then it will go back to court. And we believe there's two routes basically if it has to go legally. There's two routes. There's a very quick route where effectively we should be able to get Lee Power back into court within a couple of days, but it's quite complex. There's a longer route which is easier, but that might take a couple of weeks maybe. Axis, I believe, if they have to go down the court route, will go down the quick route in order to move things more quickly and get the ownership piece moved forward. But we're hoping it's done outside of the court process. But Axis lawyers are preparing to go back to court if they need to, certainly in the next couple of days.
Goodness me,
that's where we are.
Yeah, incredibly complicated. We lost Matt for a minute, but thankfully he's back again.
Sorry.
And Mark very kindly took us on a tour of the house. Mark, you trying to sell the house? Is that what you were doing?
I'm in the trophy room now.
Oh, are you? Very nice. Okay. Well, we got lots and lots of questions here. So I'm going to fire them at you, and let's see if we can get any answers from you. And goodness me, why would you know the answers to this? Jonny, this is from Kev. Do you think Lee Power is doing this on purpose? Now, it's very easy to run away with that idea. And, I'm not here I'm trying to be objective in this case. Emotionally, I am not objective. I can tell you, if I could hit the table very hard, I would. But is he doing this on purpose as far as you are concerned?
I don't know. Your immediate reaction is just almost for comedic value to go, yes. I have no idea what he's doing. I've thought about it. I have no idea. I don't understand, unless it's out of spite or something towards Clem. Just complete lack of respect to absolutely anyone who's helped him even get this far as owner in terms of the fans. I have no idea. I've just no idea why he's doing this. He's just, he's kind of shown his true colours, really. I think, if he had the club at heart, like he says, he said stuff in court which plainly isn't true. I don't know. It just seems like I have no idea. There's no real reason other than being really childish and petty and just going, I'm gonna, long this out for as long as possible just to annoy as many people as I can. I have no idea. Other than that, I have no idea why he's doing it. I'd love him to tell me.
Yeah, well, yes. Matt, this is from Rob, and you'd probably be in a good place to answer this. It's gone beyond the tipping point for this season regardless. And I think it's a point which worries many people, because you will know as a player, you want to know what signings are coming in. You've got to bond with those players in the 5-6 weeks of pre-season, haven't you? You've got to get shape. You've got to get all that sorted out. Are we getting to the tipping point yet?
Well, I think we're certainly getting there. Like you say, the majority of sort of close seasons, 5, 6, 7 players come in. Amongst then on top of that, there are trialists. You train for a couple of weeks, then you start playing the games, and as you get into the season, you've got to have a relationship with those new lads coming in. And as we say, as this goes on down the line, it's going to be another week and another week, and then before you know it, you're into the season. You start the season with a couple of bad results, and then 5 weeks in, you're struggling down the bottom. Then all of a sudden, the pressure's on again, and it's another long sort of season. Thinking back to sort of my time there, it was for all the struggles we had, we never had this situation where we didn't have a squad of players, or we didn't have a manager. It was never right at the start of the season. There were problems sort of mid-season, but in that sense, as players, you just the old cliche, you just get on with playing the game, and payments were late. Eventually, the money would turn up from somewhere. We didn't know where or who was. It's just all right. We've got paid. There's another game on Tuesday. There's a game on Saturday. We're at the minute. The small amount of players that are there are sort of up in the air as to everything that's going on, and nothing to sort of really focus on. It's like let's 4 of us go for a run around the training ground. That's about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to know who's taking training, Matt. Have you got any inside information on that? I mean, I guess Lee Peacock.
Just
Steve
I
Milne.
believe it's Mildy and Lee Peacock. Yeah, but the way pre-season is now at certainly professional clubs. How many members of staff do you have? Sports scientists, nutritionists. People doing this session, that session, strength and conditioning. And if it's just a case of just Lee Peacock and Mildy taking training, then I suppose if there's only a squad of 6, it doesn't really matter so much. But the whole staff, from top to bottom, there needs to be, God knows how many people brought in to sort of get up to speed.
Mark, let me say this to you. This is from Robert. What shirts are we wearing next season? Have we got a new shirt? Will they be available online? And when is the shop going to open again? I mean, I know shirts might seem a trivial thing, but do you know what? They're not a trivial thing. We don't know what kit we're going to be using this year. We don't know.
I wrote that down. Wrote that down in my notes, Vic. You'll be impressed that I prepared for this.
Very good. Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
And I actually wrote down the kit. What have we got one? Are we going to wear like red t-shirts? Are we going to go skins? You just don't know, do you? What's going on behind the scenes? I mean, I wrote down things we would need for the new season: 10 to 12 players minimum, an owner, a new manager, safety certificate for the ground. Have we got that? Is that in place? I'm sure Clem Mulfooney and his team have looked at these things, but we need to have those in place, and it needs to happen now. And I go back to Lee Power, and if by any chance he's watching this or seeing some footage of it, if he's got any empathy with the fans, people like me, but other people who've been following the team for even longer, surely he must say that the end for him as owner of this football club is over. He must then relinquish control and let Clem Mulfooney and Access take over. If he's got any feeling for any of the fans whatsoever, he can prove that, can't he, as soon as possible, like tomorrow.
Yeah, and I, things like the shirts, like you say, I mean, last year's shirts presumably is what they'll wear on Friday at Melksham.
Yeah.
But then what? I mean, I come from an age when they didn't change the shirt every year, so it's not the end of the road. But there's sponsorship deals, all that kind of thing tied in with it. So it's different now, isn't it? James, we're getting lots of questions regarding the trust. This one I think I can answer. From John: has the trust been in contact with Clem? Well, I think the answer is yes to that one. Can legal action be taken against Lee Power for failing to pay staff and lying to the court that he could fund the club? Now, correct me if I'm wrong, James, but one of the things that was said to court was that he would fund the club till September.
Yeah, absolutely.
there is the money from the Football League to fund, or is it PFA, to fund players' wages. That's arrived. So there is money available for that, isn't there?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I guess the first thing is, if it does have to go back to court over the next few days in order to force it through, one of the things that the judge will look at is, okay, Lee Power, you said you could fund this club until September, but look at the evidence. None of the players been paid, none of the backroom staff been paid. We owe the council 10 months, well, more than that actually, since April 2020. We haven't paid the rent on the county ground. There's rumours of other suppliers not being paid. There's rumours of the training ground, Beaverstock, not having been paid. I'm sure we're we know there's a big long line of people that haven't been paid. So, in that sense, the judge would simply say, well, you said you could fund this club until September, but you've not proved it. Proof's always in the pudding, ultimately. But the most bizarre thing appears to be that if he can't afford personally, or the club can't afford personally, to pay players' wages and staff's wages and all the other things we've just mentioned, that there is money that Axis have provided, 300,000, which would cover a month's worth of wages. There's got to be money left from the EFL loan, I would imagine, because that was 800,000. So, let's say an average month's wage is 350k. Where's the rest of it gone? Because we know we used it the month before, but surely there's some of that money left. So again, it's just bizarre. It really is just bizarre. And I think, the situation with not paying your players. Okay, the players can get paid via the PFA. Yes, it will take a couple of weeks. Sure, Matt knows this, but they will get paid eventually. It's not quick to get money out of the PFA, but it will happen. But the ones we feel really, really most sorry for, well, we feel sorry for all of them, but the backroom team, they're probably not on huge amounts of money. They put their life and soul into the club. They love the club. They go out their way to put extra hours in, and yet, they've not been paid their June salary. It's just staggering, really. But if he has said some of those things in court, Vic, which obviously we know he has, then potentially, the judge could say, well, you've not kept your side of the bargain. So, he could be in trouble, but more likely the judge will just say, well, you've proved that you can't afford the club or afford to keep the club running. Therefore, we're going to transfer, we're going to force through the sale of the club to Clem Morfuni and the Axis Group. So,
we feel for people like Will Fowler, the media manager, Jonny, who you know very well. This is from Craig. Maybe, Jonny, you might know something about this. It's very difficult to know any news about this, but any news on whether current playing and admin staff are receiving any form of remuneration? And do we know the FA have been approached for an emergency loan again? And any idea who our PFA rep is at the moment? Well, one of 5 or 6 people, I'm guessing. What about that, Jonny? What have you found out? Because it is very difficult getting anything out of the club at the minute, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't blame Will in any way. Like he's just kind of does what he's told, and he usually does it very well. So, nothing on Will.
No.
I believe that no one at the club has been paid anything. I don't think I have strong reason to believe that I don't think anyone, even like anyone in the back room, have been paid anything. So it's not just the players; it's anyone who's kind of associated with the club. What were the other questions? Sorry.
Good. Who is our PFA rep at the moment? Well, do you know that? Any idea?
I have a feeling it was I think it was Baldry.
Right.
I believe.
Okay.
I think he had it a couple of years ago, so I presume he still is the person.
Okay. And do we know if the FA have been approached for an emergency loan again?
I haven't heard anything on that, but no, I don't think so. I don't know. I haven't heard anything, but I don't think so. No.
Okay.
Just chip in there, Vic, if I may.
Yes, of course.
The other thing that is I find absolutely staggering, as well as Lee Powers, either staggering in attitude or spite. What exactly are the FA and the AFL doing or saying? Because to me, it doesn't sound like they're saying very much. We have got one of its 92 members on the tightrope, walking the precipice, on the very edge of going out of existence. And what have they actually said? Yeah, okay, they've provided some money, a loan for players' wages. But I'm not hearing anything. All I'm hearing is deafening silence. You know, Bury goes to the wall, Macclesfield goes to the wall. There's a chance that Swindon Town Football Club, a side that was in the Premiership, you know, less than 30 years ago, will go out of existence. Where are they? Come on, let's hear you. What have you got to say about this football club, please?
Well, we know that all the focus, Matt, is on the Premier League, basically, isn't it? And, you know, we see very little about the situation at Swindon Town. This is from Rich. Are we going to be the next Bury FC? From Steve, why hasn't the national press not taken more interest in the situation? From Kevin, lost for words, how Lee Power can do this to the club. And from Alan, how are we going to field a team for an upcoming friendly? Well, I know you'll probably know more than most of us, Matt, that it is a mix and match anyway at pre-season, isn't it? Where, you know, your first team isn't revealed until pretty close to big kickoff. So for the first couple of friendlies, it is mix and match. But this is a very strange situation, isn't it?
Well, it is. But on the flip side of that, you know, certainly your first two friendlies, basically you have a squad of 22 players. 11 play the first half, 11 play the second half. You know, because now certainly they play friendlies earlier and earlier every year. So if you're getting friendlies in the first week of July, you know, there's probably only a week's training in your legs. You know, you have a big squad and you play 45 minutes and you ease yourself in, and then you move up to an hour and then you start playing 90 minutes. But, you know, what you know, ask, even if you bring some youth team lads in, you know, how big's the squad going to be? So you're going to be asking lads to play 90 minutes a week into pre-season. You know, quite conceivably, you know, you could get an injury and then you've got a player out. You know, it's not ideal. It's just a mess. Like I say, you want to spread the load out the first couple of games, and you all get half football. But to us lads, you know, I mean, how many lads are in the youth team that realistically could step in and play? I don't know. So you know, even if you took, you know, 6, 7, 8, you know, you're still asking lads to play 90 minutes, and that's you know, it's tough. You know, after what they've been back to day training, so that's it.
Yeah, and also very easy to pick up an injury, isn't it? I mean, you know, look out for strained muscles and things like that, isn't it?
Of course it is. Yeah, I mean, you know, no doubt the lads that are coming today, they'll come back fit. You know, it always happens. The work's happened, so they'll come back fit anyway. But, you know, as you know, it's you can do all the running, all the, you know, core sessions and gym work you want. But as soon as you actually play a proper match again, and even if it is at Belgium or Supermarine or whoever it's against, you know, you're still stiff as a board the next day after 45 minutes. So to be asking lads to play 90 minutes after 1 week's training, it doesn't bode well.
No, it doesn't. Lots of things coming in, James, about the state of the pitch as well. We know that there was some work done just after the season finished. But that's another thing, isn't it? That's another creditor. From Daniel, like Mark mentioned earlier, do things need doing to the stadium prior to the start of the season? For example, safety certificate deadlines. And we don't know what sort of condition the county ground is in. I'm just going through them now. Power is doing this because he can't get his own way, i.e. selling to the Americans. That's able. That's from Robbie. Well, what is the likelihood of us following Bury's footsteps? From Lee, from Anthony, in view of Power's disclosure about funding the club, well, we've done that, haven't we? Could he be held in contempt of court? Which is a very good point. Have the firm who relayed the pitch been paid? Do we get anything for Scott Twine? If so, where is that? And from Carl, how can he not pay the furloughed staff? Surely that is illegal. So, James, I mean, there's so much. I mean, when you think about it, the simple thing is we kick off on August the 7th. You have 11 men versus 11 men kicking a ball about. It's quite simple solution thing, isn't it, really? That's simple. But behind all that is an enormous spider's web of stuff, isn't there?
Yeah, there absolutely is. And obviously some of those things Clem and his team can be preparing, but there's some things until they actually get the keys to the county ground, they can't do anything about. So they'll basically, as soon as the transfer goes through, you know, they'll need to jump on those things immediately. But, you know, it's an awful mess. But I think just to take on a couple of those points, I appreciate people, you know, are feeling extreme, like I am or have been, feeling extremely annoyed and frustrated. But I have to say, as a trust, we're extremely confident that this transfer will go through. It's not if, it's when. So, it will happen. But obviously, really, for us to have any form of half a decent season, and I agree with Jonny, I think a decent season as we stay up, and I think that's largely going to be it. Because you've got to also consider that the transfer window closes, doesn't it? End of August, beginning of September. Yeah. So ultimately, if we're as Matt said earlier, we're going to be left almost shopping in the bargain basement, or players that maybe are not fit, have had injury problems, or players maybe with not kind of the right kind of attitudes that maybe other clubs have passed on. So you're going to need players for effectively the first 6 months of the season, but then you're going to have to try and put it right in January. So January is going to be exceptionally important for us, I think, from a player recruitment perspective. But, if we don't get half decent players in some form for the first, period of the season, by the time January comes, we could already be in a dire situation in terms of our league position. And even if we do recruit well and invest well in January, we all know it's always difficult to get the right players in January. It could be very difficult. So, but I think just reiterating, we are really, really confident that it will go through. And, Axis, Clem is the best lawyers you can possibly have, and they will not sit around waiting for documentation not to be sent through. If it doesn't come through voluntarily, it will be taken back to court and dealt with appropriately, and as quickly as possible. And that's generally what we've seen behind the scenes throughout this process, and that's what they'll do. So,
well, you kind of answered what Craig has said here. What happens if Clem's lawyers don't like the look of the answers they get from LP's lawyers? I wouldn't blame Clem for walking away from this right now. Reassure me. Well, I think you've kind of done that. This is from Irene Wellens. Hello to you, Irene. Praying for some good news for all the fans. Thanks very much, Steve, for that message. Aren't we all? Really? Jonny, let me put that national press thing. That was from Steve. Why hasn't the national press not taken more interest in the situation? And also from Steve, I can't believe a local radio station have stayed very, very quiet on all of this. Now, as a former BBC employee, I have to say, if I was a reporter at the local radio station I would be all over this. And I am staggered that it hasn't been like that. And I do give you some leeway because I know the situation at the Advertiser. But surely media has to be all over this, doesn't it?
Believe me, this is my job 24 hours a day, every single day.
I get that, Jonny. And I, as I said, I do understand the situation there.
I'm not going to talk about BC Wiltshire because I probably could get in a bit of trouble, and I just don't really want to go there. I think everyone's feelings out there are probably similar to mine. Let's put it that way. So I'm not going to talk about them. I would say it's nice to see, like, Ryan at Total Sport is kind of taken a bit of it on. He has a tough job as well because he's not a full-time sports reporter. He's end up doing news and does all sorts of stuff. So kind of any him like bringing up the FL and stuff like that is really. At the moment, like, I get the newspaper and stuff, and all the media is a business, and we all have to hit various targets, whether we like them or not. But at the moment, in this situation, I just see it as a team effort. Like, I don't care who breaks the story. I don't care who gets there first. I just want it to be right, and I want it to be soon, basically. It doesn't matter. I just think, like, anyone who has the ability to push this thing along, and I think the fans do as well. Everyone's got like a responsibility to push this thing along, whether it's just noise on Twitter or it's protests or it's banners or it's people like me in the media writing stories. Once this goes through, we can all pat each other on the back and say, well done, because we all played a part in this. This isn't just down to me, and this isn't down to the trust or the supporters club or anyone else. And it's not about taking credit for 1 second. Again, I couldn't care less if no one knew who I was and no one, not no one read my stories. That's nice. I need it. But no, I just don't care about that sort of stuff. We all need to group together and kind of chisel this one out any way we can, really.
Yeah, actually, this is a very good point from Samuel. Problem is that Euros are on at the moment, and that's why the big media are not interested. I mean, they're going to be, well, we know what's going to be all over the media between now and Wednesday, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, if I could kind of touch on that, I think it's difficult. I would guess, given that I know the game pretty well, I would say that at the moment this isn't of interest to everyone. Like, it's obviously national media have touched this, so no one's like leaving it alone. No one's like not said anything, but it's not like, I think because we're not quite at Berry levels, we're not getting Sky Sports News, or that equivalent attention. We've had a bit on TalkSport, we've had a bit on like the Price of Football. I think the Times, the Athletic, people have touched it, but because we're like, it's a story, but it's it's obviously our world, but to the kind of the Fleetwood fan on the street, they're like, oh, of course, the stuff going down at Swindon, what's going on there, and you take a fleeting interest, but it's not everyone's top of their list.
Who we got in a friendly next Tuesday? I know what you're saying. They may move on quickly. This from Mitchell. Weirdly enough, the pitch looks great, and somebody seems to be doing external work every day. I've seen somebody painting the outside, also scraping the turnstiles and repainting. So there is some work going on. Stephen Jones. This is thoughts when the FA charges and punishment could be implemented this season or next season. Well, we'll get to that in a minute. Matt, I just wanted to know, from a player's perspective, what's going on in their heads at the moment? Because they turn up for pre-season training, they haven't got enough for a six-a-side base, or 2 6-a-sides, have they? I think they were at Calne today. What's going through their heads?
Well, it's a tough one. Like I said, when we were in that position, we were sort of mid-season and with a full squad and matches to focus on. So to go in there, it's always, as much as you don't necessarily enjoy pre-season, it's always good to get back and catch up with everyone, and you look forward to working hard. But it must be a strange atmosphere with, like you say, so few bodies there, and no one really in charge. You don't know, what's going on. Is the game going to be on? When you're going to be playing? What? So I don't know is the answer, because I've never been in that position. But it's going to be tough. It would be tough going back with that small amount of players anyway, and then to not be paid on top of it. Then things that happen behind the scenes, I'm sure they speak to people, agents will get involved, and things will be going on behind the scenes for those lads. They want to know how long things are going to last like this. What are their ways to get out. No doubt, what players are like. But the be all and end all is they've got to get fit regardless of what happens. So all you can do is go in, put your kit on, train hard, do the right things, and hopefully it all gets sorted out. And you get to the season with a squad of players, and you can kick on. But yeah, it is just the old cliche: go in, do your work, go home, be professional. At the end of the, I'm going to say that's what you get paid for. But if you're not getting paid, then I suppose it's different. But yeah, professional attitude, I suppose.
Yeah, and I suppose people like Dion Conroy, who missed out because of injury on a pre-season last year, was really looking forward to getting himself fit this year and ready to play, and that's been a blow to him, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, they'll be doing all their running work, but like you say, with that few amount of players to do any actual sort of game type stuff before going into friendlies, and then the last Dion wants to do is have to play sort of longer than he should. He's someone that definitely needs to be eased back in, get a full pre-season, which he hasn't had for a while. So it is a blow, but all you can do is sort of work hard and say all the right things, do the right things, and keep your fingers crossed.
Yeah, this is from Craig Gurney. Any relation? Would you consider turning out for the town again, Matt? I think we'd all love to see you back. Our version of Harry Maguire, I think I kind of sum you up as.
Well, I don't know about that. He's quite good on the ball. He scores more goals than me as well.
Yeah, but I know you got knee problems, haven't you? So you can't really.
I have.
Yeah.
I've got one knee, 1.5 knees. I've got.
Yeah, fair enough. But we'd love to see you play again, because those of us who saw you play quite liked it. Mark, where are you at in your head? Because I did make a decision on Saturday where I thought, until 10 to 8, when a certain statement came through, do you know what? For the weekend, I'm just going to worry about England playing football and Somerset playing cricket, which have had 2 nice days watching cricket, and it's been lovely. But in your head, the back of your head all the time is this thing, isn't it? What's going to happen? Where are we going? And will we be at Scunthorpe on the opening day? All that kind of stuff. Where are you?
Yeah, pretty much where everybody is. I think in the back of everyone's mind is, we love this football club. We want it to continue. We're desperate for it to continue. I don't want just to have no football club to support, and anybody who says, "Oh, you can go and support somebody else," you just don't understand, do they? That this football club's in your blood. It's been in your blood since, for me, the age of 9, and I refuse to see it go to the wall. So I'd urge people. I think it was a bit like Jonny said, to try to get involved where they can. So far, I've sent a letter to Robert Buckley, the MP, because as well as the Swindon South MP, he's a Justice Secretary. I've sent a letter also to the Adler, the same letter. Jonny, I don't know whether you've seen it. I've got hopefully some national press people involved as well through a contact. And on Saturday, I contacted Chris Kamara. So I'm just trying to do little bits and pieces, whatever I can, to try and keep this football club going, try and keep people's awareness of it going, but also to say, come on, we've got 2 alternatives, it seems to me. We can sit around wringing our hands and going, oh, this football club's going to die, or we can try and do something about it. And that's why I take my hat off to the trust, all the fantastic work they've done. It really is amazing. I'm sure it involves a real slog for them. But we've just got to keep going, keep at it, keep this football club going, and better times will return. I'm convinced of it.
Okay, we've got 1 or 2 things that, James, you might be helpful for you to have a go with. From Stephen, those thoughts when the FA charges and punishment could be implemented this season or next season, and would it be against the club or indeed against the previous owner? Well, that's something that we don't know. That's in the future. And this from Aaron: Has Clem got a manager to come in along with the CEO and director of football? Well, the last time we spoke to him, he was going to give John McGreal an opportunity. That, as we know, has now changed. So what do you know of A, charges, and B, what he's got in store in terms of director of football? You said he's got one of those lined up. He's got a CEO lined up. What about a manager?
He's got a couple of people that he's interested in manager-wise. He hasn't, he's shared quite a lot of stuff with us at the Trust. He hasn't shared that in terms of who those managers are. So I can't comment on names, but we do know he's got a couple he's spoken to or lined up potentially. But again, like I said, kind of before we started this, depending on how long the process takes, depends on who that option is, because, he probably could do a lot worse than going back to McGreal and seeing, if he would kind of come back.
I see he's been linked with Rochdale today.
Well, he has been linked with Rochdale, yeah, absolutely. But, again, it depends on timing. We do understand that, he's interested in potentially one or 2 managers that are potentially in roles, but also managers maybe out of roles as well. So again, it just depends on timing as to whether those people will be interested whenever the time is right for him to make an offer or interview the individuals as to where we're at and whether they're willing to consider something. If it's a manager that's already in a position, if the transfer occurs in this week, then you might think, well, okay, if they're not 100% happy with where they're at the moment, and Clem makes them a good offer, and they buy into the strategy, then they might consider it. But if we're further weeks down the line, then they're already going to be bought into the club that they're working for, and potentially not going to want to leave. So it's tight. It's all about timing. But yes, there are people that he's got lined up, several.
Yeah, Jason has mentioned Harry Kewell and Tim Cahill. I've seen Harry Kewell mentioned, obviously the Australian connection, and Tim Cahill, of course, looking presumably to move into management. So, put 2 and 2 together. This from Carol: Hello to you, Carol. Can James confirm that Clem, as an existing shareholder, will have passed the fit and proper persons test, brackets, for what it's worth, close brackets? Well, I think we've said before that he has, and then he had to go through it again as a potential owner, but he's gone through that. Is that right?
Lee Powers stated, I think, that, or I think his solicitor stated in court that he might have to go through a kind of more enhanced version for a kind of person that's significantly in control rather than a minor shareholder. But he has passed the, what he needs from the EFL as far as we're aware. So, yeah.
And from Carl, when is the next date at court where we might get some additional clarity and a judge's ruling to help push this through? Well, you're saying that Clem Morfuni's lawyers will go back to the court if they don't get this documentation through that they need. Yeah. But there is a date. Is there a date in September still? Yeah,
so the court case, if it has to go that far in terms of the actual transfer of ownership, could be as quickly as a couple of days. They obviously, naturally, they want the same kind of team, the same judge that's been involved all the way along for continuity reasons. So obviously it would depend on his availability in terms of the date. But as soon as that person is available, that judge is available, then they'll get it back in court, and we believe that can happen quite quickly, based on the, a lot of it is based on priority of the case, and in which case, because the players and the players and the backroom staff haven't been paid, then it would be prioritised by the court because of this current situation. So we should be able to get it back in court quite quickly. But in terms of the next kind of scheduled court case, September the 5th, we believe, is the scheduled court case where they'll be looking at the Standing versus Power in terms of the ownership piece. But obviously that's got nothing to do with Axis. That's literally Standing and Power about who owns, who funded the club and all that kind of good stuff. And so, and obviously, the FA are waiting to see the outcome of that, in terms of where the court kind of sees that occurring. And they've been kept in the loop on that throughout. So I would imagine that they'll see the outcome of that case on September the 5th, and then make their judgment on who's to be punished. But as a trust, we've spoken to the EFL. We've had a meeting with them. We've written to them. We've written to the FA as well. We've also got our local MPs involved to help us a little bit. And we've called out for the fact that it should be the individuals that ultimately should be punished, not the football club. Unfortunately, when you meet these people, they don't really give an awful lot away. They've got their legal person at the EFL or the FA on the call, and naturally they'll kind of nod, but they don't necessarily give an awful lot away. So in terms of how they'll act, we don't know until the event occurs. But as I said, we've done all we can to make sure that our message as fans has come across, that it should be the individuals punished, not the football.
Okay, fair enough. Right, this is from Steve Dixon. Let's have a bit of lightheartedness. Are Harold Bishop and Madge available? For those of us, our younger viewers, they of course were part of Neighbours many years ago. Daniel Box says, I played against Mark in the Sunday League. He could still do a job. So there you are, Mark. You got a vote. Jonny, where are you going to attack this from as a reporter? I mean, is it a case of just waiting and seeing, or are there things you can do? How much digging can you do? Like you said, you've only got a limited amount of time, but what can you do as a reporter right now?
Well, yeah, you sort of said it there. I've only got one pair of hands. I've still got to fill the paper and hit my kind of targets and stuff. So if I get 5 minutes, I can ring, people like the FL. But like James said, they don't really tell you anything. I've tried in the past over stuff, and they just say, we're not allowed to tell you this, or I've asked, for a specific document, and they're like, it's this one, and I'm saying it isn't this one. You're not understanding what I'm saying here. They're just, I don't know, kind of tear your hair out at times, because it's really frustrating to deal with. But I don't know. Hope we can, just sort of, I guess, like I said, keep in contact with it. Everyone keeps in contact with the trust and the supporters club and everyone, and just share information, and just kind of hit them with as many prongs as we've got, really, and any information that comes to light, and we can just make sure that everyone knows about it. That's kind of all I can do.
Okay, fair enough. Matt, this is from Paul Watts. I wouldn't take any first-team squad to Melksham at all. Protect what we've got and play youth and any trialists entirely. The trouble is with that, of course, what you want to do as a professional footballer is build up some sort of match fitness, isn't it, before the first game of the season? Although, taking your point, you don't want to overdo it early on.
Yeah, I can sort of understand the point, because you can't risk any of those players picking up an injury to keep them out for, even at this stage. If it was a couple of weeks, then you're well behind the 8 ball then. But at the same token, you don't want to punish those lads. Those lads need to be fit and ready to go into the season in 5 weeks' time. So they have to play some part. Ideally, not to play all of it, but it's a case of where you're going to get those other players to fill the gaps. I don't know, but yeah, I mean they need to play some. If it's just 45 minutes, then happy days. But the squad needs to be filled soon, because they need to start getting games in their legs to be anywhere near ready to go for the start of August.
And how was it when you played somebody like Melksham? No disrespect, but the players of Melksham are going to want to. Do they try extra hard? They're playing a professional football team. This is a League Two side, so I'm guessing there'll be an extra effort, wouldn't there?
Yeah, of course you do. And you go into these games knowing that those lads have been at work all day. So for them, it's different. There's no, they do it because they enjoy doing it. I'm not saying that professional players don't, but after going to work all day, they really look forward to going out on a nice summer's evening and try to show them what you can do. So it's never easy. It's always a tough physical game, and when you're at that sort of early in your fitness, a week back, these lads have probably been back sort of 2 or 3 weeks training 2-3 times a week, and like I said, they're really up for it, and they'll go out there and run around and want to leave a bit on a few, and it's all about getting the minutes in your legs and not picking up any knocks.
Yeah, this from Tony Scott, Mark. And if the ownership is sorted out this week, let's have some hope for the future. Like days of Burt Head and a mix of existing and new young players. Who knows what we might discover? A new Summerby or Hunt, etc. Well, I don't know how many of those we got hanging about, but they were pretty exceptional. I mean, Mark, we've over the years have seen, a lot of young players come through. What is your take on perhaps this might be the making of them, or is it going to be too much pressure for them? What would you reckon?
See it as an opportunity, Vic. I think that's absolutely right that we do. I think we all know there's talent knocking around. Salt Price only a few years ago from my school scored 2 goals on his league debut, only the 10th player in the club's history to do the same. Had Scott Twine obviously recently, but I think they've been a bit thin on the ground over the last few years, really, if you think about it. So that talent is out there. It needs, proper sorting out, a proper network, proper scouting to get it sorted. My question, I guess, was a bit more basic than that. We say we're going to put a team out for Friday's game against Melksham. Have we got a youth team? Not being funny, have we got enough players to fulfil the fixture anywhere? Regardless of the professionals that are currently at Swindon, who else is there? Can we fulfil the fixture? Seriously.
Well, that was kind of the embarrassment with Supermarine, wasn't it? I mean, I can't ever remember a pre-season friendly being postponed because presumably, A, they'd not started training, or B, there weren't enough players. I mean, I can't ever remember that.
No, I think we've got an academy. I know there's a lad again from my school who signed a 2-year contract, as far as I'm aware. He's 16 years old, so I guess if there are other players like him, then they play on Friday. But equally, as Matt said, we have to try and protect the existing pros that we've got, small number that they are.
Yeah. From Paul, do we have enough players? Sorry, Matt. Go on. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, just gonna say, it's one thing having a certain amount of academy players, but we're talking first year academy lads. Like these are young 16-year-old kids. For them to be thrown in anywhere near the first team, like these lads, unless they're exceptional, they're not ready. They're not good enough. It's not fair on them. It's different to sort of second, third years, whatever, 17, 18-year-olds. But when you're fresh out of school, this is your first. You're at a full-time club now. You're just a kid. You know what I mean? You want to be working on your game and practicing the basics and sort of growing into being a man, not thrown in to men's football. You know, it's not what you need. So it's all right having a squad of 15 youth team players, but how many of them are actually ready to play men's football?
Fair enough. Yeah, Paul says, do we have enough players to play triangle football? Melksham drew with this is from Keith. Melksham drew with a very strong Bristol Rovers squad Friday evening, so they won't be holding back, and rightly so. So there you are. This is from Stephen. If the panel had to pick a manager for next season, who and why? I've seen the usual names mentioned. Paolo Di Canio, of course. He's been mentioned many times. So let's go around quickly. James, any idea?
I think I forget his name, the guy at Newport.
Mike Flynn. Yeah.
Mike Flynn, thank you, Lonnie.
That's what I was going to say. So yeah,
a senior moment there for me for a minute. I think Mike Flynn would be a good option. I know he's been kind of towards the top of the betting. So I think what he's done at Newport on relatively much of a shoestring, I think would be great. He would probably be my choice. But I think he would probably be the one that I'd go for.
Okay, Johnny, you're going to say Mike Flynn. So there we go.
As soon as I saw him linked, I was absolutely as delighted as you can be, I guess. I sort of thought as in terms of his man management, I've ever kind of seen him at a Newport game or whatever. He seems like a good coach, and I think in the circumstances that we currently find ourselves, he would be kind of the right person to have. He's been around the block. Okay, he's probably never been in a situation like this before, but say he takes over a team and things might not be going well, he knows how to kind of grind out results. He loves a cup run, and we haven't had a cup run in years. So
a what? What's that?
I know, yeah. I think so. I'd like Mike Flynn, and there's not too many other viable options out there as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, Matt, any idea?
No idea is the honest answer. But on the Mike Flynn thing, he's done really well the last couple of years. Realistically, why would you want to jump ship and come to Swindon? So, especially the longer this drags on. If the deal gets done tomorrow and he can have contact and they say, right, this is what's happening, this is what's in place, this is what we want, then, you've still got time to do that. If we're looking another week down the line, 2 weeks down the line, to jump out of the club to come in, then it's, unrealistic in my view. But just a steady manager, just to come in and sort of try and steady the ship and get us back going again, I think. But I don't have any names on the top of my head.
Okay. I'm just going to throw this one. This is from Mitchell. I've watched the under-18s a few times. I feel like you have two or three of them who stand out. Harry Parson, obviously, but young centre-back Francis and a winger called Whitfield. Thank you very much, Dee, for that, Mitchell. Mark, who would you fancy?
I like the chaps. I like Mike Flynn a lot, and I've got a lot of time for him and his management style and the way he gets his teams to fight for everything. But if you're Mike Flynn, realistically, you've got a full squad of players at Newport. Okay, you're a bit cheesed off because you've got a director of football. Are you realistically going to come to Swindon Town with 5 or 6 players on the books and all the problems that we've got? I have to say, probably, unfortunately, not. So you're then left with somebody perhaps like Paul Tisdale or somebody like that, if he's around. I know he was unsuccessful at Bristol Rovers, but of course did really well at Exeter for quite a number of years. So maybe look at him. Just somebody who can keep the ship afloat, steady us. I think we're all saying is, trying to keep us in League Two is the really realistic option for this year. If we stay as a football league club at the end of the 2021-22 season, we'll have done well.
Yeah, I think it'll be a miracle, quite frankly. I've got to say, my battery is running low on my iPhone because of the internet connection. I had to suddenly change equipment. So if it all goes blank in a minute, I apologise. But briefly, James, let's finish with where are we going to see the take through go through in the next week or so. Hand on heart, what is your?
If I had to give percentage, I would say I would be between 60 and 70% confident that it will go through in the next week.
That's pretty good. Okay, a final question. This from Elaine. What about all the players we got rid of? Can't any of them be called on? Where have they all gone? Jonny, have they all got new clubs, or are they still hanging about?
No, I haven't seen that many, if any, have gone. Especially we were talking about the youth players from last year. Like I quite liked Massimo Giametti and I can't see the centre back that we had. When I saw them under 18 level the year before, I always felt they stood out. And again, League Two, where like Matt said, you've got 16-year-olds who aren't ready. What about 18-year-olds who have had a year of at least playing with professionals? Like they know the kind of, they might have learnt a few of the dark arts and stuff like that just to get us through. And I'm sure they'd come back because I think a couple of them is their hometown and stuff. So yeah, I think that would be a decent option if Clem's able to kind of sweet talk them.
Okay, Chris, are you there? Just in case the battery goes and everything closes down.
I am.
Excellent. Matt, there aren't any dark arts in football, are there, Matt? Everything's clean and above board, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about.
Fabulous. Well, there we are, Chris. We know. I guess we know a little bit more, but we don't know a little bit more. It's that simple, isn't it? Really.
I think it is, but it's been very good discussions, and we've had at one point nearly 400 viewers. So thank you very much for taking the time, and thank you very much to the viewers as well for supporting us on these Monday night panels and things. It's really appreciated. So thank you again, Jonny, Matt, Mark, and James. Thank you, Vic, as usual. We will be back when there's anything else. So look forward to having one next week or later this week or tomorrow, maybe. You never know. We'll be ready and waiting. So
we might be doing one live from Melksham on Friday. Who knows?
Yeah.
You never know.
You never know. So thank you very much, everybody, and have a good evening.
Thanks, Chris.
Cheers, Chris.